You're listening to the Successors podcast with Kara Oosterhuis on RealAgriculture.com.
Okay, folks, we're here. It's time for episode 1 of the Successors podcast. I'm your host, Kara Oosterhuis. Before we dive into the content of episode 1, right off the hop, I'm going to address a question. What is the Successors podcast? So for one, it's a place of learning, a place for questions, a place for understanding, a non-judgment, let's make it through this together sort of idea, which probably at this point has you saying, okay, Kara, that's great. That's what most podcasts are. What makes this podcast unique in my eyes is it's a place for us. Now, I know you can't see me doing finger quotations right now, so you'll have to take my word for it, but it's a place for us youngins to grow. Young, of course, is subjective, but when I say young, I'm not really thinking numerical age. I simply mean those that haven't been in the agricultural industry for 20 plus years. The less, for lack of a better word, well-groomed of the industry. If you're starting out, if you're, within the first decade or two of your career, this might be something that is of interest to you. The idea came to be through listening and learning of what's out there in the industry. As you guys know, if you're familiar with any of the work I have done on Real Agriculture, I am an online ag media reporter. I tackle all sorts of different things, but I am always watching what is going on in the industry. And I just got to thinking, we often talk about things like succession planning, business development, investments, all these different aspects, but I felt there's a space missing for the young producers. How do we tackle succession from the other side of the coin? What opportunities are out there for careers off farm that weren't there a couple of decades ago? My guest and I will chat about anything and everything, and as I've come to realize, this is episode 1, and as much as I want it to be perfect, it probably never will be, so we'll learn our way through this together. We'll dive into topics such as mentorship, marketing, communications, implementing new ideas in the farm, managing family conflict, and so much more. And I'm going to talk to all sorts of different experts and people like you and I that are going to be a part of this podcast, and they're going to help us guide us through some of these issues from this perspective, from the young perspective, and give us a little bit of insight on where to go through the eyes of the, wait for it, I'm about to name drop here, the successors, the next generation of agriculture. And you guys, I'm so excited to have you all along for the ride. As I kind of alluded, this will be, although it is a podcast that's recorded, I do want it to be an interactive experience that you guys will be able to suggest topics, guests, ideas, questions, anything you have back to me, and we will address them on the podcast. So please feel free to keep doing that as we go through this series. Anyways, that's probably enough of me talking. You guys aren't here for me. You are here for the content. So let's dive right into it. My guest here today on episode 1 is Rosie Thoni, who is the U.S. Public Relations and Content Lead with AdFarm. Rosie has been recently named as one of AgGrad's top 30 under 30 in agriculture and is an advocate for the advancement of agriculture. During her time so far at AdFarm, she has secured earned media placements with top agricultural and mainstream publications, provided media training for executive teams, strategized media relations, and so much more. Rosie always seems to be involved in something new and has a very exciting bio, but I'm going to let her explain it to you guys in a little bit. To start off here, Rosie, how's it going?
It's going great, Kara. Excited to be here with you.
Oh, and it's great to have you here today, Rosie. It is always awesome to be able to catch up with you, so I appreciate you joining along. So I guess to get things rolling here today, do you want to tell us a bit about what you do at AdFarm?
Yeah, you bet. So I'm our US PR and content lead, as you said. That really involves all things public relations, media relations, events, content, writing, owned media. It kind of spans the gamut when it comes to all things PR and communication. So we work with a variety of clients, all in the agriculture space, but spanning from things like software and technology through to animal health, through to equipment, So working with all of those clients really to help build PR strategies and plans, execution, and help them get their message out to the marketplace. I am in Wichita, Kansas. Our offices are Kansas City, but I'm here remotely. I like to say I was working remote before it was the cool thing to do with COVID.
Yeah, as a fellow remote worker, I completely get that. But I mean, I will say this here, that if there's anything that kind of came out of this whole everyone else working from home, it is some of the cool gadgets out there. I mean, like, suddenly having an office space at home has become a little cooler. So I'll give you that, staying on the positive side. Anywho, episode 1 seems to be about right for some rambling here. If you don't know me personally, I would assume by get through a few episodes with me. Bear with me. We'll have some laughs. We'll probably also have some awkward stumbles. So we're all human here, people. Anyway, Rosie, you may be based in Wichita. However, you grew up in my neck of the woods here in southern Alberta. Talk about starting in Canada and moving to the U.S.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if my accent is still coming through, but I'm originally from southern Alberta. I grew up in the Lethbridge area. My family had a grain and purebred Hereford beef farm. So grew up very involved in agriculture, really involved in 4-H, junior Hereford events, and always knew I wanted a career in agriculture. So I set off for University of Alberta with an ag business degree, decided fairly early on there that marketing communications was really my greatest area of interest, but didn't want to lose that ag focus. So I started doing a little research into how I could combine ag and communications in a degree program. A lot of American universities, those land-grant universities, have really well-established AgCom programs. So that sent me down to Oklahoma State University, where I finished up my degree in agriculture communications and ag business, and started with AdFarm shortly after graduation.
So what sorts of things were you hoping to, obviously you're looking at keeping agriculture as a part of you, but what sorts of job opportunities were you looking at before you joined AdFarm?
So funny enough, even as I was making my decision to move down to Oklahoma, when people asked me what exactly I wanted to do with that degree, I talked about working somewhere like AdFarm, because I was aware of AdFarm through their support of 4-H in Canada, and knew that combination of marketing, communications, that fast-paced agency environment, plus my love of and roots in agriculture was exactly what I wanted to do. So I didn't always know it would be an agency. I kind of looked at maybe association work, maybe more of a generalist communications role. I do like to look back and laugh at the fact that when I got my PR offer with AdFarm, I was hesitant because I thought I might be pigeonholed into PR as a discipline, and that it was almost too specific to start out in. And at this point, I have never, ever felt pigeonholed. I've never felt like my job wasn't broad or didn't give me a great variety of experience every day. So I'm extremely glad that I took that chance. But yeah, I just always knew it would be something in communication about agriculture and involved in agriculture.
Now, I know, Rosie, with having previous conversations with you in the past, you like to say that a big part of you getting to where you are has been mentorship. You've had some important mentors in your life so far. It's a tough thing sometimes, I think, to have a mentor and to be able to keep in contact with them, decide who your mentor is going to be. This whole advisory group, it's sometimes tough to develop. So do you want to talk about so far how having mentors has shaped your career thus far? As well, when it comes to mentorship, do you have any advice for someone entering the industry, whether it be seeking or maintaining that relationship?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways to go about it, both the more structured mentorship programs. I was really lucky to participate in Cattlemen's Young Leaders through the Canadian Cattlemen's Association in their first year. So back in 2010, and I was assigned Diane Finstad as a mentor, and that was really part of what solidified my interest in ag communications, reporting, and media. So that program was extremely beneficial to me, but I've also been lucky to connect with mentors in a more informal way, which if you don't have access to those programs or aren't sure they're a fit for you, there are many ways to get linked up with mentors. I also got involved in the Calgary Stampede Ag Media Committee as an intern early on, and found some great mentors through that program, through internships, people that I kept in touch with. So really finding some of those more organic ways to get in touch with people whose careers you admire, and really being the one to make the effort to reach out. These are usually people with really busy careers. They're happy to help, but they're also short on time. So if you can be the one to reach out to those people, to let them know what you're looking for, if it's guidance, if it's answers to some questions you have, if you want to meet them for coffee, those people are usually more than willing to do that. It's just taking the initiative to make those personal connections, because as we know in the agriculture industry, this industry is completely powered on people and personal connections and networking, and that is, bar none, the absolute best way to find the opportunities you're looking for.
I think another really cool thing I've found so far with mentors too is that there are so many great people in this industry. I mean, we can focus on the negatives, and of course there's always going to be some bad apples, but there really are some great people and they're willing to help. You just have to be the one to reach out, and as intimidating as that can be, it's important to remember we're all just people too. I know I've struggled with that in the past too. You don't want to bother the quote unquote big wigs, but a lot of times they're willing to help, and they want to help you succeed too. So absolutely. And yes, it is such a small industry. That's one of the first things my mentors have told me in the past is you don't want to burn those bridges, because chances are someone you've worked with at one company, you will run into at another. Do you keep in contact with any of your mentors still?
I do, yeah, frequently. And I reach out to them if I've got questions, if I have things to bounce off them, if I just want to catch up and see where their careers have taken them. It's something that I don't think you ever get at a point where you're too far in your career that you couldn't use the help of mentors, especially when you've got some of those big decisions to make, if you're ever considering a career move. I recently took on the responsibility of being a manager in the last couple of years, and that was something I reached out to mentors for some help on, okay, what are your management tips? What's your management style? What's worked for you? And how can I approach this as a new manager?
So obviously, like you said, you grew up on a farm, very heavily involved in agriculture. And, in ag, we oftentimes, we talk about how we're short on people to work on the farm. So we're often advertising that, you don't have to be a part of agriculture growing up to be in ag. Now, you kind of took this the vice versa way. You grew up in ag. You knew you wanted it to be a part of who you are and what you do, but there's opportunities outside of the farm. Do you want to talk about some of those?
Yeah, so I was in a very lucky situation in that I've got two older sisters, and one of them was poised and completely the right fit to take over the operation from my parents. So that's what her and her husband do. They've since moved the operation to Saskatchewan, but they've expanded and they've grown that Hereford operation considerably, and they are the best people for that job. I knew also fairly early on that I wasn't quite cut out for it. It was maybe evident when, at livestock shows and 4-H events, I was much more interested in public speaking and marketing competitions than I was the actual livestock components. So I think that it's a great example of there was still a fit for me within agriculture, even if it wasn't returning to the farm or taking over the farm from my parents. And that fit was using what I found as my strengths and talents in communication, but still finding ways to advocate for farmers and ranchers, advocate for our industry, and take that, through some different avenues than just returning to the farm. I think we do see labor shortages in agriculture across the board. So that's part of our job as communicators too, is to get the word out and let people know, even if you don't come from an agriculture background, there are opportunities in engineering and technology, in sales, software, even in marketing, digital communications, SEO. There are a wealth of opportunities within agriculture that aren't just on the farm and aren't just for people with farming backgrounds.
So short of being older and going to shows and being interested in public speaking and marketing, was there any moment where you just kind of knew that communications was the route you wanted to go?
My dad likes to remind me that when he would take me to the auction market when I was about 5-6 years old, I would spend the whole time doodling and writing stories on the bid cards. So it's possible it was quite early on. I've just always had a penchant for communication. Like I said, public speaking, judging, those events were what I was really drawn to within my upbringing within 4-H and junior livestock programs. So I think it was something that I was I gravitated to early on. I didn't necessarily know it was a career option that early on. So if anything, that's what I would love to communicate to people that are maybe younger, coming up in high school or at that college age, is that it's so important to look into all of the different opportunities available to you. And if you don't think your specialty exists within agriculture, probably think again, because there is so many different opportunities that you can work for agriculture companies, for agencies, for even primary production that really put your skills and talents to work.
As you noted, we have a role as communicators to, communicate as clearly and accurately as we can across the industry. This has become even more critical in times where, uncertainty circulates around media and the communications industry. It doesn't matter whether you're in mainstream or like us in the agricultural industry. What do you see as your number one responsibility as someone who helps get information out to the public?
I think our main responsibility as communicators is making real connections and understanding our consumers. I think that's a bit of a pivot from the traditional line of messaging, which has been we need to educate, we need to share with the consumer, we need to tell them what we're doing. That's all true, but I don't think it's effective just to yell facts at the other side. I think we really need to be building bridges, building connections, finding out what our true shared values are, and sharing based on that, because we're not going to get anywhere by, sharing facts, sharing just science. It has to be built on emotion and connection too.
Completely. And I don't know if I could have said that better myself. So well done. Thank you. I think that's a good note to end on for episode 1. So thanks, Rosie, for your insight. I look forward to seeing what comes next for you in your career.
Thank you so much, Kara. And yeah, I'm always happy to talk to any new grads, any younger people looking to get into this field. So I would encourage them to reach out if they have any questions.
Absolutely. And speaking of questions, as I said earlier, if there are any listeners out there who have questions, comments, suggestions, concerns, whatever it may be, but be kind, folks. That's all I ask. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter at Kara Oosterhuis. And yes, I recognize that's a big last name. We can't all have the last name Smith, but it's spelled Oosterhuis. And yes, that's a double O. Or if you're not on Twitter, send me an email, koosterhuis@realagriculture.com, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Until next time, stay real, and thanks for listening to The Successors.